Slender Man was a fictional horror figure on the internet, known for his very spooky looking appearance. He was quite iconic with a lot of fan works and multiple media-based properties using his likeness, and his presence alone was revered everywhere he went online. 15 years later, and no one cares anymore. I'm sure I'm not the only one thinking this as well, right? I mean, Slender Man used to be such a big deal back then. Someone you can talk to your friends about seeing him late at night outside your house. Or if you were a YouTuber per se, someone that can guarantee your career for the next 10 years. So many games were being produced. Slender, the 8 pages, garnered so much attention that the official site crashed because they couldn't handle so many people downloading the game. And after the success of the 8 pages, more games were being produced, each one after the other, increasing the stakes, making the game scarier, and adding more lore to the Slender Man character. And then you also had shit like Slender Pants and Slender Tubbies. I'm pretty sure this was the origin to those cartoon horror games. You know the ones I'm talking about. Not to mention the countless amounts of web series based on Slender Man. Marble Hornets is a popular example, a web series with a shoestring budget that was able to manage its series and keep it consistent. I can't say the same about its film adaptation though, but we'll get to that real soon. Despite all these successes the Slender Man character has received, no one seems to remember him. Even though 2024 marks 15 years after the Slender Man was first created, there's no celebration, no retrospective reviews, nothing to mark this moment of a influential creepypasta character. Well, the short answer is a decline in popularity, oversaturation of its gimmick, and a darker subject involving attempted murder of a child. Let's start all the way back in the Something Awful forum boards, a community run by gooners which has now declined in popularity. But back then it was quite huge, and one of the threads on the site was based on a Photoshop competition. The catch was it was very spooky themed. And you had some alright Photoshops being done here, but ones that stuck out in the thread were a few images done by a Victor Surge, showing a group of children enjoying their day. It looked normal so far until you paid close attention in the background, and you notice that something's off. Someone, or rather something, shouldn't be in this photo. The children in these photos do not pay attention to them, as if this figure wasn't there at the scene, yet somehow still present in the photos. It looks like a simplistic Photoshop edit, but it made most people looking at them feel uneasy. These first depictions of Slender Man would go on to bring the character recognition and interest throughout the internet. Hell, the Marble Hornets web series was later made just a few days after the images were posted. I think it's fair to say the creation of Marble Hornets helped elevate Slender Man's fame as well. And for those that know about Slender Man but not Marble Hornets, which I presume is quite a few, if you ever watch those top 10 Slender sighting videos, 9 out of 10 of those sightings are from Marble Hornets. And that minority 1 out of 10 is that Russian video of Slender Man. Yeah, that one. Yeah, people were starting to get scared of this guy back then, for many reasons as well. First, Slender Man already had a vagueness looming over their character. All we really knew were these sightings of Slender Man in photos, and displaying the average behaviors of YouTubers when around children. Second, and adding on to that last tidbit, I'm sure many people finding out about Slender Man were also children themselves, if not young adults. So to have this entity who stalks people of vulnerable ages without any explanation adds to the fear factor. And third, the appearance of Slender Man drew people in. I mean, yeah, it's just simply a white man in a suit, but it can be uncanny to some people. Combine that with the tall height and appendages that come out of his back, and you basically have this creepy looking goober. Many of you will possibly not find this scary at all, and I understand, but it was also a different time period. Same goes for things in the past people found horrifying as well. I like to think in 10 years now, people will look back at the analog horror ARGs and liminal spaces and just think, wow, people were creeped out by that? Kinda stupid.
You are made of stupid.
This was during the peak of creepypastas in the 2010s, so you had Slender Man, but you also have Jeff the Killer, Eyeless Jack, Smile Dog Job Bait. smiledog.jpg, and fucking Sonic.exe. So Slenderman looked like a breath of fresh air compared to these OCs made by a bunch of edgy 13-year-olds. He has that old folklore mythology thing going on. It's actually quite apparent, as Victor Surge even acknowledged it. During an interview, Victor Surge, whose real name is Eric Knudsen? I don't know how to pronounce that. It's going to be the own Gazelic thing all over again. There was this interview by WordPress in 2011 asking the creator of Slenderman a bunch of shit, including influences. Surge was influenced by Stephen King's short stories like The Mist, The Rake, which is another creepypasta, various urban legend beasts, and even H.P. Lovecraft, which, now that I'm putting his face on screen right now, he kind of looks like the Slender Man. With the overwhelming positive reception from people, Surge decided to continue creating more images of Slenderman, thus getting more people to know about this spooky little goober. You might have seen it from time to time around the web as well, but it wouldn't get mainstream attention until a creation of a small, obscure indie game. You guys probably don't know what it's called. It's Slender the 8 Pages.
Murdering these crackers.
This one fucking game blew up the web. So many people were downloading it that the original site crashed. And as the Let's Play YouTubers picked up on it, more and more people were drawn to it. If you were a YouTuber playing Slender the 8 Pages back then, prepare to get a fat check that month. So many people, from Markiplier to PewDiePie and even Smosh Games, yeah, remember that exists? They even made a Slender video on their main Smosh channel. What was I saying again? Right, these YouTubers playing the 8 Pages would get so much attention, their careers were already set for life, and Slenderman was now known by normies around the world. This surge in popularity made Slenderman a new trending topic for everyone. So many people who have made videos based on Slenderman, from pranks to animations, songs, and Minecraft machinimas. What? And there were videos going around how people saw the Slenderman in real life, and some of these were quite spooky. There were two of these sighting videos that creeped me out back then. One of them was more of a police recording the video. It was an officer interrogating a man about his encounter with Slenderman and how it yoinked his daughter out of existence. And the more the interview went on, the more the father became extravagant about the Slenderman. It goes on until in the end of the recording, when the father sees the Slenderman right behind the officer and... oh my god.
Took my Jessica! It's now coming for me! I can't sleep! I can't live! You don't know! You don't know! Oh god! Oh god!
Thomas, calm down.
Ah! It's right there!
It's okay. Toss it.
I am now shivering in my timbers. The other video that I remember the most was a young girl recording Slenderman outside her house in the backyard, which was like an entire forest, and she's trying to tell her mom off screen about it, but she's not listening. Then it cuts to her at night underneath a blanket. I think she was talking about how she heard something in her room, and she lifts the blanket up and Slenderman's in there. So she runs out of the room. I remember her screaming cheese and crackers, which, yeah, I mean, it sounds dumb, but this was also a 10-year-old recording this, so whatever. But she runs out to the front door, and then she sees Slenderman is right there. And for some reason, the Slenderman in this video was wearing a bowler's hat. Okay. And it ends with her running and crying some more. Unfortunately, I can't find where this video is anymore. Maybe the original uploader deleted it, or their channel was gone. I don't know. I hope other people know what I'm talking about here, and maybe know where this video is, cause it scared the fuck out of me. Made me think Slenderman was in my room back then. But the games were the most well-known. So many iterations were being created, many of which were awful, and some expanded themselves. It was kind of like Five Nights at Freddy's and how people were making so many fan games. Why was the Slender game concept so popular? Well, it involves you walking around a dark area, sometimes a forest, sometimes a abandoned structure, collecting 8 objects, avoiding the Slender Man, and that's it. Alright, the concept of these Slender games were pretty basic, nothing really too special. I mean, all you really do is walk around in the woods. If I wanted to do that, I would have just gone out and done it myself. Hi guys, this is Base President. I'm out here in the woods. Got invited by a bunch of goth girls to binge watch some Urban Spook together. But I don't know where they are. Seems pretty dark. What is that? What? Welcome to the Diddy party. What?
Ain't no party like a Diddy party.
Oh no. Like I said though, there were several games that tried to be creative with such a boring concept. Slender in Space was a favorite of mine, surprisingly, and even a few YouTubers played it. And then there was Slender the Arrival, that worked out as well. It was the official game after the 8 pages. The original studio teamed up with a bigger studio and increased the scale of this game. And it was done quite well, even with a few issues looming over it. I don't mind this game. But there's another factor in these games that played a big part during the time of its release. See, the 8 pages was released around the same time as another indie horror game, that being Amnesia: The Dark Descent. And both Slender and Amnesia had one thing that scared people: the atmosphere. The tone of Slender the 8 pages have you walking around a dark, dimly lit, almost vast looking forest with nothing but a flashlight that can run out in a couple of minutes. You hear sounds of the environment at first, but the second you pick up that first ominous looking page, that's when you start hearing drums. Amnesia is just a perfect example of this at the time, using the atmosphere of the game to creep out the player and add a submissive and breeable monster chasing after you. And while not identical to Amnesia, it still does use its atmosphere to invoke a sense of horror onto players. And it's what made the game and the character of Slender Man so unnerving to people. Slender Man was getting more exposure throughout the year, and even being referenced in multiple media-based properties. Some like to point out this one image from Gravity Falls, where Slender Man was supposedly added when this episode was released, but it's clearly a Photoshop. Weirdly enough though, Slender Man was added in the Gravity Falls Lost Legends. He's just looking for his wallet as Dipper and Pacifica are caught in a net. And this wasn't the last time he was referenced in a Disney animated series with Alex Hirsch involved. He was also an Easter egg in The Owl House as the Lenderman Bank. Not sure how I feel about that one. And he was an Easter egg in Total Drama All-Stars, appearing in one of Chris's television sets in the far left corner. So I guess that means Slender Man is canon to the Total Drama lore? Considering how batshit insane the series gets in its later seasons, this is probably the most normal thing in Total Drama. Wait a minute. Oh, how can I forget? He was in Family Guy.
It's Slender Man!
Kill yourselves!
And now Slender Man has gotten to a point where his popularity was being recognized and poked fun of by industry professionals. And with all this media exposure, you would think that there would be a movie made after Slender. And there would be, but there were a few movies that came before that. Here's a few well-known ones. The Slender Man was a 2013 film proposed on a Kickstarter campaign. With over 200 backers and $11,000, the film was written and directed by AJ Meadows, and was released on YouTube. I don't know why exactly, but maybe it has to do something with Slender Man's copyright. It's shot in found footage and has 3 overarching storylines. The first storyline focuses on the Anders siblings. After the death of their father opens their eyes to a character he was obsessed with throughout his life. The second storyline focuses on Kyle Hudson, a detective investigating a missing child case and gets in contact with people with similar cases. And the third storyline focuses on Hank, a father grieving the loss of his son Danny. He kidnaps other children and sacrifices them to the Slender Man in order to get his dead son back, something which Hank is not proud of in a sense. Then there's Slender. Yeah, just Slender. Released in 2016, it's a found footage film, but there's times when it tries looking like a mockumentary, with the film crew documenting victims of the Slender Man before being stalked by him. It's also really bad. I mean, the characters are awful, the entire film is just a waste of time. But the most disappointing to me was always watching a Marble Hornets story. This was released in 2015 and was supposed to adapt the Marble Hornets web series to the big screens, and it didn't do good. Despite having the Marble Hornets name attached, it has next to nothing to do with the original series. The only reoccurring character is the Operator, a name referred to the Slender Man. The film is about a news crew doing a story on foreclosed homes, and while reporting on this story, they find a house that still looks lived in, and yet there's no one in sight. They find a bunch of family videotapes in the basement and watch as the family was being carefully stalked by the Operator before it starts stalking the news crew. Again, it has a perfect concept, but the execution just doesn't do the work. I won't talk extensively about these films. If you want, Hoodlum Revenge has a series of videos reviewing these flicks. Go check him out. I'm not wasting my time on this garbage. Instead, I'll waste my time on a Slender Man short film, Fathom, by Gearworks TV. This is how you make a Slender Man film. Granted, it's only 8 minutes long, but that doesn't matter. Everything about this short film should have worked for a feature-length film. The cinematography, the lighting, the set design, the acting, everything was so nicely done. Slender Man was alright in this short film as well, but there were times where it looked like the actor was clearly standing on stilts, but that's fine. I mean, it's a tall character. This was still a great short film. And another thing I should say before is that Gearworks TV also made a few other creepypasta short films. They're alright, but I like Fathom the best, and Sony would have definitely loved them as well.
I'm the Joker, man.
Alright, so maybe Slender Man wasn't doing so great in the film department, but he was still popular. YouTubers were still covering him, and games were coming out a lot more even after the official release of Slender Man: The Arrival. But now, here's where things start to take a nosedive. These Slender Man games were coming out in so much quantities that it started to get repetitive. The game concept for Slender Man, it really wasn't that special to begin with. What made it special was the atmosphere and the character associated with it. And it seems like people didn't understand it altogether. That, or they want to milk the trend until it's dry. Or a mixture of both. The games that were coming out were declining in quality, and while there were still a few people playing them, they would move on to play something else as the Slender games were becoming tiresome to watch and play. To me, the true peak of Slender Man was around 2011 to 2012, because that's where all the hype for the character and the original game came out, when everyone was playing it. 2013 was when things were going downhill. Slender Man: The Arrival did come out early in 2013, but there were so many Slender copies now. It wasn't hard to code stuff like this. So many people took time out of their day to easily manufacture the worst game you've never heard. Additionally, the Slender Man character was becoming less spooky. The more people kept seeing him, the less scared they were. And it all looks like the same gimmick at this point. Oh look, it's Slender Man. Ah, static swallowing the screen. It seemed unique at first, but as more and more people kept making the same thing with a new paint job layered over it, it became repetitive. And the creepypasta fanbase was starting to plunge at this time, as all these characters they've been scared of for the past few years didn't scare them anymore. This didn't mean Slender Man was a trending fad from yesterday. The character still had a dedicated following, and people were still making videos of the guy. But that would come to an end. This is where things start to get dark. May 31st, 2014, in Waukesha County, Wisconsin, 12-year-old Peyton Leutner was stabbed 19 times and left for dead in the woods by her friends Morgan Geyser and Anissa Wire. Thankfully, Leutner was able to find a bystander passing by and get some help. And incredibly, she survived her injuries. Police interrogated Geyser and Wire on their suspected role in the attack, and why they stabbed Leutner. That's when their motive was revealed. They wanted to appease Slender Man, a fictional online mythos. This entire incident was what many will say is what killed Slender Man. If you were a Slender Man fanboy back then, you couldn't escape this story. Anytime, anywhere you try to search anything related to Slender Man, you're going to get this story about how two girls almost murdered their friend for this internet creepypasta. Suddenly, this character now has affected the real world. It even made its way up to Eric Knudsen, the creator of Slender Man, and he made a comment on the tragedy, giving condolences to the victim and her family, before going on to say he won't be making any interviews. Though, to be fair, the media also played a huge role in this nationwide scare. The second they saw a story where two kids tried to murder someone over a fictional character, they ran off with that shit. But now the damage has already been done. This is the event that many people can agree is what killed Slender Man's popularity. Since then, after the stabbing, Wire and Geyser have been found guilty, but for some reason, Anissa Wire was let go of custody, and that made Lutner and her family move out of Waukesha. Yep, they actually did release one of the girls that were trying to kill her, and the one who stabbed her first nonetheless. Who in their right mind would do this shit? Geyser is thankfully still in custody, though she's been requesting to be released as well. Oh god. As for the Slender Man character, the years after the stabbing weren't that great. The Slender games were becoming less frequent, and now a new horror game known as Five Nights at Freddy's would take stage and make an entire generation autistic. There was also the Slender Man movie that came out in 2018. And that was horrible. If you haven't seen it, consider yourself lucky. There hasn't been much recognition of the character as well, though apparently in the latter half of the 2010s, Slender Man was being portrayed positively, even having a daughter named Skinny Sally with a fucked up backstory. I'm not going to read it, but it's right there. I read that this could have been a after effect of the stabbings that took place, but this was also the creepypasta fandom in late 2010s. They were doing whatever weird shit they can do to keep these things relevant, and it obviously didn't work. And here we are now in 2024. Slender Man is no longer an interest. It's a fad that has since gone, with the only time it's being discussed is on reminiscing old creepypastas. And honestly, it's sad that this influential character on the web has to die out because of a tragic incident carried out by two mentally ill children. But there's no escaping it. The amount of times I kept getting videos or articles related to the stabbing was a majority. The damage is already done. I think people will still remember Slender Man for the nostalgia they felt, whether it's playing the game, watching old YouTubers, or maybe watching one of those sighting videos. And hey, it's not too late to be playing the 8 Pages or the Arrival again. They won't be as famous as they were before, but they're still fun to experience. Unfortunately, Slender Man won't be famous before either. It's just like other horror fads, like your Siren Head or Jeff the Killer. They will one day be popular, and they'll be mostly forgotten. That is the 15-year legacy of the Slender Man.